Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Tonight, we delve into the world of the unknown. We're talking about those eerie encounters on lonely roads, those spine-tingling moments that make you question everything. We've scoured the darkest corners of the internet, sifted through countless chilling accounts, and unearthed 3 hitchhiking stories that are guaranteed to send shivers down your spine. So buckle up, turn off the lights, and make sure you're alone, because these stories are not for the faint of heart. And if you're brave enough, stick around till the end, because the most terrifying tale is always saved for last. Our story takes place on a desolate highway stretching through the heart of Texas. The kind of road where shadows dance in the flickering headlights and the silence is broken only by the hum of your engine. Behind the wheel was David, a young man driving through the night. His only companions, the rhythmic thrum of the engine and the faint glow of the radio. The miles stretched out before him like an unfurling ribbon of darkness, each one taking him further from everything familiar and deeper into the lonely heart of the night. Little did he know this seemingly ordinary drive would soon take a turn into the twilight zone, an experience that would leave him forever haunted by the mysteries of that night. As the hours crawl by, the highway remained deserted, each passing mile amplifying the eerie silence that had settled over David. Just as fatigue began to gnaw at the edges of his concentration, a flicker in the distance caught his eye. A lone figure stood silhouetted against the faint glow of the moon, their thumb outstretched in the universal sign of a hitchhiker. Hesitation flickered through David, a primal instinct warning him against stopping. But something about the figure's forlorn stance tugged at his conscience. Against his better judgment, David slowly brought his car to a halt beside the stranger. As the figure approached, David noticed the way they moved, almost gliding towards the car. The stranger was tall and slender, their features obscured by the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. They slid into the passenger seat without a word, a palpable aura of unease settling over the car. Miles turned into minutes as they drove deeper into the night, the silence in the car growing heavier with each passing mile. David tried to engage his mysterious passenger in conversation, but each attempt was met with a chilling silence. The tension in the car was palpable, a knot of unease tightening in David's stomach. He snuck a glance at his passenger, their face still hidden by the shadows of their hat. Suddenly, the figure shifted, and for a fleeting moment, David could have sworn he saw a glimpse of their face, or rather, where their face should have been. There was nothing there, just smooth skin beneath the hat. Panicked, David slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a stop on the deserted highway. But when he turned to confront the figure, the passenger seat was empty. The only evidence of the hitchhiker's presence was a note scrawled on a piece of paper, the words sending chills down David's spine. You shouldn't have stopped. Our next story takes us on a road trip with two friends, Sarah and Emily, who decided to embark on a cross-country adventure. They were young, free-spirited, and eager to experience the world beyond their small town. With a map full of possibilities and a shared playlist of their favorite songs, they set off on their journey. The open road stretching before them like a symbol of endless possibilities. As they drove, the miles melted away, filled with laughter, shared secrets, and the thrill of the unknown. But little did they know, their carefree adventure was about to take a sinister turn. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the highway as Sarah and Emily ventured further into unfamiliar territory. Their carefree mood was briefly dampened when they realized they'd taken a wrong turn, ending up on a desolate stretch of road with no signs of civilization in sight. Just as their anxiety started to rise, they spotted a lone figure by the roadside, desperately trying to flag down a passing car. It was a man, rugged and unkempt, his face etched with a mixture of desperation and relief at being spotted. Despite their initial apprehension, Sarah and Emily decided to pull over, their inherent kindness outweighing their growing unease. As the man approached their car, they noticed a strange glint in his eyes. He introduced himself as Jake and explained that his car had broken down a few miles back. He claimed to be heading to the next town and asked for a ride. Although something felt off, the girls brushed aside their instincts. They convinced themselves they were being paranoid and agreed to give Jake a lift, unaware of the danger they had invited into their car. As the miles ticked by, the atmosphere inside the car grew increasingly tense. Jake's initial charm had evaporated, replaced by an unsettling silence, punctuated by his unnerving stares. Sarah noticed his eyes darting nervously towards the glove compartment, where she kept her pepper spray, her hand instinctively moving closer in case she needed to defend herself. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life with a breaking news bulletin. A prison break had occurred nearby, and the escaped convict was considered armed and dangerous. The description sent chills down their spines. It matched Jake perfectly. It was a dark and stormy night. The kind of night that makes you want to stay inside, lock the doors, and pretend the world outside doesn't exist. But for one reason or another, this guy, let's call him David, found himself driving down a lonely stretch of highway. See, David was driving home from a work trip, a trip that had already kept him away from home longer than he'd liked. He was tired, he was ready to be in his own bed, and every fiber of his being was wishing he was anywhere but on that desolate stretch of highway. As the rain beat down on his windshield, David noticed a lone figure standing by the side of the road. They were shrouded in shadow, barely visible through the sheets of rain. Now, David wasn't normally one to pick up hitchhikers especially not in this weather. But something about the figure's desolate stance tugged at his heartstrings. Maybe it was the way they were hunched against the biting wind. Or maybe it was just the sheer isolation of the scene. But whatever it was, David pulled over. As he rolled down the window, the figure turned, and David could see that it was a young woman. After a few minutes, the woman finally spoke, her voice a soft murmur, almost lost in the rain. "You're kind," she said, her voice trembling slightly. David shrugged. "It's no problem," he replied. But even as he said it, David felt a shiver run down his spine. Something about the way she spoke, the way her eyes seemed to look right through him, felt off. He asked her name, but she just shook her head slowly. David noticed the temperature inside the car had plummeted. She seemed completely unaffected by the sudden chill. He kept telling himself it was just the storm, just his imagination. Suddenly, the woman turned to David, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made him flinch. "Do you believe in ghosts?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. David, taken aback, could only stammer a response. "This road," she began, "is not kind to those who travel it alone." David could feel the blood draining from his face. Right here, on this very stretch of road. David felt a chill run down his spine. He knew the woman in his passenger seat was not who she seemed. As the car rounded the bend that the woman had pointed out, David's headlights illuminated a small, weather-beaten cross by the side of the road. A single white flower, its petals battered by the rain, lay at its base. David felt a cold dread grip his heart as he realized the terrifying truth. He was driving a ghost. He slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt in the middle of the road. Turning to the passenger seat, David expected to come face to face with the ghostly apparition, but the seat beside him was empty. The woman was gone, vanished into thin air. The only evidence she had ever been there was the lingering chill in the air and the faint scent of rain and something else, something floral, like the flower at the foot of the cross. David was paralyzed with fear. He sat frozen in the driver's seat, his heart racing, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by relentless pounding of the rain on the roof. He wanted to scream, to run, but his body refused to obey. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, David managed to gather his wits. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely dial the numbers. As he waited for anyone to answer, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that the ghostly woman was still out there, somewhere on that lonely stretch of highway. So, good, there you have it. 3 terrifying tales of hitchhikers who are not what they seem. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that the open road can be a dangerous place, and not everyone who asks for a ride has good intentions. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, Don't forget to share your own scary experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had a strange encounter with a hitchhiker? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And as always, until next time, keep your doors locked and your eyes open.